The EFF, supported by COSATU, has tabled a bill in the National Assembly seeking to ban alcohol advertising in South Africa. The proposed amendment to the Liquor Act of 2003 would prohibit the advertising, promotion and product placement of alcohol across all forms of media. The EFF says this is about prioritizing the health and safety of citizens over the profits of liquor companies, pointing to the links between alcohol abuse, gender-based violence, road fatalities, and the strain on public health. But the liquor industry warns that such a move could have severe consequences for jobs, small businesses, and the wider economy. To discuss this, we are joined by Lucky Ntimane, convener of the National Liquor Traders Association, as well as a representative from the EFF, Sharon Letlape. Sharon, I want to perhaps start the conversation with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. What is the rationale the EFF is relying on in advancing this proposed bill in Parliament?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us, and let's greet the viewers at home. So the EFF's intention with this private members bill is to ensure that in as much as alcohol contributes a large number of money into the GDP, we cannot find ourselves as a country prioritizing profit over the lives of our societies. What we have experienced and what we have seen in the different societies is that we find serious alcohol abuse, we find GBV cases going up. And if you look at the patterns of this happening, they happen in festive seasons. We are in a serious crisis of unemployment rate, where a lot of young people particularly fall to being victims of alcohol abuse, of drug abuse. And we are saying that if we want to fix this problem or this crisis that we're facing as a country, we need to find steps of doing that. And part of the steps in addressing the alcohol abuse that we have in this country is to propose the banning of advertisement of alcohol. And the reason for that also is because advertisement of alcohol in this country has been associated with this glamorous lifestyle, where on the other side, we're not being told, or we don't see what alcohol's consequences are in societies, in the different societies and communities where young people drown in alcohol, drown in drug abuse, and all of that. So we think that advertising of alcohol is really one-sided, and we really need to address the issue of alcohol abuse and what alcohol does in this country. We've got a lot of problems, and at the center of them, especially in societal illnesses, it's alcohol. And therefore, that is why we want to ban the advertisement of alcohol, because it is not a true reflection of what alcohol does to our society in this country.
Yeah. Lucky, it's almost undeniable that South Africa has a drinking problem. Half the time I speak to you, Lucky, it's because some or other alcohol-related incident has occurred in the country. We have an underage drinking crisis in South Africa. We have alcohol-related violence, alcohol-related fatalities due to road motor vehicle accidents. And of course, we have a deepening economic crisis where people going through a depressed period in the lifespan of the country often turn to alcohol as a crutch in times of despair, which South Africans by increasingly large numbers are relying on. And something needs to be done about this. But is a ban on advertising a step in the right direction?
Thank you for the opportunity, and good afternoon to Sharon. Firstly, we welcome that the EFF has started a conversation around the issue of alcohol abuse in the country, an issue that we feel has been swept under the carpet for such a very long time, and it's about time that we address it. But we, however, must hasten to add that banning alcohol advertising is not a solution that we seek in a country that is growing at less than 1%, in a country where 37% of our people are unemployed, in a country where 3 million graduates are struggling to find jobs. But also, we need to be cognizant that all issues that we propose as a solution to addressing the issue of alcohol abuse must be rooted in science. And we've seen in the proposals advanced by EFF that it is not rooted in science, let alone common sense. We do not believe that the shotgun approach is going to address the issue that all of us must be seized with, which is the issue of alcohol abuse in our country. When you look at the research that has been done, in other countries, for example, in the UK, between 1991 and 2001, alcohol advertising fell by 10.8%, whereas the consumption rose by 15.8%. So we can see that isn't any direct correlation where when you ban alcohol, we're going to have reduction, in the consumption. But we do, however, accept that, those that consume alcohol in a responsible manner in the country seem to highlight, some of the issues that we've been running away from that, we need to address. And we welcome that, the conversation has been started, but we do not believe that banning alcohol is the solution to be adopted.
Sharon, I want you to engage that. Lucky makes the point that banning advertising doesn't necessarily mean that consumption goes down. We've seen an example of that in South Africa with the banning of the advertising of cigarettes and tobacco products. We haven't seen a decrease in the use of those products. Those products are still being, in fact, more people smoke today than, say, 10, 20 years ago. Where do you draw the correlative link between a ban on advertising and a reduction in consumption?
Yeah, so if you look at countries like Russia, when the alcohol advertisement ban was implemented, the alcohol consumption in Russia also reduced. So what Lucky's saying, I don't think it's the complete truth. But if you were to compare tobacco and alcohol, it's not the same. You don't find advertising of tobacco in events or in organized gatherings.
You used to when tobacco was, you could still advertise tobacco, you used to find that.
Yes. But if you look at with the problem that we have with alcohol, he rightly says now that young people are in alcohol, we've got a serious alcohol problem, and he acknowledges that. But we are saying that we need to find steps of addressing this problem that we have. And part of it is banning the alcohol advertisement, because the advertisement of alcohol does not give a reflection of what alcohol does to our society and to the country. And why I'm saying that, alcohol advertisement currently is associated.
Can I just pause you there? I think it's important that we have a conversation around causation and correlation, right? On the one hand, Lucky says, if you look at Australia, there wasn't a reduction in consumption when they banned alcohol advertising. You say, well, let's look at Russia. Now, we can all back and forth, each ping-pong cite a country where we've seen this happen and the results may vary. The conversation we must have is the cause of social ills related to alcohol abuse and alcohol use in South Africa related to its visibility, or is it caused by something else?
Part of it is related to the visibility. We find alcohol advertisements everywhere. If you look at all the big billboards and all the advertisements that are happening, prime time, when young people or children are watching TV, it's literally just alcohol throughout. Prime time. And this is the time where families are gathered together in a household watching TV together. But what these children are seeing as well is very important. And what they are seeing with this alcohol advertisement is that alcohol is associated to socializing. It has positive impacts. The people who are advertising are shown to be, well-off people, well-dressed, cleaned up, and all of that, which is actually not the case. And the reason why we are putting in this amendment bill, this private members bill, is to address the very same thing, to say we are not being honest in what alcohol and the impacts of alcohol are in this country. And we cannot prioritize making profits of alcohol and ensuring that alcohol is accessible to each and every one. You have rightly said now that we've got a serious problem also of underage drinking. And this leads to school dropouts. This leads to university dropouts. We find a lot of young people in bridges and on the streets. And why? Not only because there's no employment, not only because they ran away from home, but because in the beginning, the association of alcohol seemed to be something that relieves stress, seems to be something that puts you in a different position, puts all the worries away, all your problems away, and all of that. And it's not a true reflection. But what that also does, it continues to give more access, particularly to young people, to alcohol. And that is what we want to address. There's a serious full access of alcohol in this country, and it is killing our societies, and we need to take a stand. Yeah. And for us, as the EFF, we want Parliament to take that first step to say, let's address part of the problems that build up to this crisis that we're facing as a country.
Yeah. Sharon, I want you to address the other point made by Lucky there around job losses. The alcohol advertising spends billions a year on advertising, where there's an entire value chain dependent on that. Lucky says in a country that already has strained employment statistics and figures, increased job losses would not be favorable. Importantly, it must be recognized that the alcohol advertising industry is perhaps only second to the gambling advertising industry in South Africa. So it's certainly one of the largest spenders on advertising revenue in South Africa, and certainly a stop to that would invariably result in job losses. What's your response to that?
I agree. Obviously, there is going to be implications to what we are putting on the table. But how many people are losing jobs because they have drowned into alcohol? How many people lose jobs because they couldn't make it to work on Mondays? How many people do not make it to work on a Monday after payday? How many people are actually retrenched from work or taken off from work because they are now abusing alcohol? And these are not issues that are being raised, and these are not issues that are being addressed in part of the advertisement of alcohol. So yes, people are going to lose jobs, but the market of advertising and the unemployment rate that is going to contribute to the broader rate of unemployment is not as big as the ones that we are facing now of people losing employment due to alcohol. And that is what we are saying. We must find a way as a country to stop prioritizing profit over the lives of our people, over the stability of our societies. And this is what also the Liquor Board also needs to appreciate, the fact that we really need, outside of just profit, we need to prioritize stabilizing our societies and ensuring that South Africa as a country does not only focus in making money, but also focuses into ensuring that its people are rehabilitated and are not necessarily drowning into these systems that the country is focusing on of making money and actually abandoning the fact that it's making more cracks, or it's creating more cracks than it is fixing the country. So yes, people are going to lose jobs, but how many people are going to lose jobs as compared to those who are losing jobs every day due to alcohol abuse? How many people are going to lose jobs? And when we say alcohol ban, we're not saying we're stopping alcohol. We're not saying no one is not going to have access to alcohol. The alcohol industry is so big that even if you were to stop alcohol ban now, advertisement now, the industry is so big that you are able to replace these people in other sectors, because this is a very big sector. It contributes a lot in the GDP, and we appreciate the fact that this industry, obviously, people are not going to find it reasonable for us to say we ban alcohol, but the reality is that the majority of the people in South Africa are suffering.
Sharon, let me just pause you there. I want
to take a first step.
I want to give Lucky an opportunity to respond there. Lucky, policy making is about trade-offs. It is about making tough decisions and stomaching the consequences that come out of that for the greater good, right? That is what underlies policy making, particularly in complex and difficult environments and circumstances. So presumably there are job losses as a result of the ban on the advertising of alcohol, but what you gain there is perhaps all the positives. And as Sharon said in her second answer, is that it may not make the problem go away entirely, but it's a part of the problem and may marginally mitigate the problem. But even that marginal mitigation is one which, as a society, we would welcome, even if it means that a few hundred or a few thousands of jobs are lost as a result of that, because in the long term, we are able to counter all of these social ills. What's your response to that particular trade-off?
So if you look at, the issue of COVID-19 that we had to enjoy at the alcohol industry, where almost 3 years went by where we didn't have full access to selling alcohol, let alone advertising, we should have learned from those realities that, as much as alcohol was not easily available and advertising was stopped, and yet consumption of alcohol continued, albeit in an informal market, which now contributes to about 20 billion rand per annum, which is now the illicit and counterfeit alcohol. What we have seen is that when you close off the legal market, you're now allowing the illegal market to take hold. And in this regard, we now have a situation where the illicit and counterfeit alcohol in our country it's actually the second biggest company of alcohol, second to SAB. So we're not finding solutions in the COVID-19 era, and we certainly are not going to find solutions in this emotional response by EFF, which, quite frankly, does not correlate with any science whatsoever in terms of addressing the issues that we have admitted that we need to deal with, which is the abuse of alcohol. But we also need to highlight that the majority of our people drink alcohol in a responsible manner. So we are certainly not going to punish the industry, the advertising industry, on a basis that there is a feeling that if you reduce the advertising of alcohol, all of a sudden we're going to have a silver bullet that will deal with the issue of alcohol abuse in our country. We have other societal ills.
Well, Lucky, to be fair to Sharon's point, she didn't say it's a silver bullet. She said it's a part of the problem. And again, even if the gains are marginal, you have to respond to at least that. Worst, best case scenario, you have marginal gains. That is to say that you have a reduction in underage drinking, for instance, right? Because kids don't see alcohol advertisements, which are quite ubiquitous. And I don't think you can deny that. They're quite ubiquitous. So even if the gains are marginal, you have to address at least that.
I think we need to be honest with ourselves. It's not marginal gains when you're closing or cancelling an entire sector, the advertising of alcohol sector, which is big on its own, like you have alluded to, that is worth billions of rands and supports thousands of jobs in our country. So that is not part of the marginal gain. But if you look at the EFF, they have not produced any secondary or other alternatives to the alcohol ban. What they thought of is just that let's ban alcohol, which we feel is a lesser approach to addressing a very serious issue that we must all be seized with. So really, if we look at the trade-offs, the trade-off is that let us deal with the issues that make people to want to turn to alcohol as a form of escapism. So we cannot say that as a solution, we are banning a sector and we think that now we have an answer.
Okay, and are these things, and Lucky, are these things mutually exclusive? That is to say, can you only do one or the other? Why is it that you can't do both? Why can't you address the underlying social issues that make people turn to alcohol, but also mitigate the ubiquitous presence of alcohol through advertising? Why can't you do both?
I think we need to be careful that we do not take emotional reactions as a policy that will help our country. What EFF has proposed is a shotgun approach that's not going to take the country forward. It's not presented in any
But Lucky, the question is very specifically, Lucky, the question is, why can't you do both? Let's leave the EFF for a moment. Why can't you do both the things?
By both, you mean we trade in alcohol and also continue advertising alcohol? That is certainly
No. Let me reframe it, Lucky. Let me reframe it. Your argument is that we need to focus on addressing the underlying social ills that make people turn to alcohol. And I'm saying, are these things mutually exclusive? It seems to me that you could do both. You could address the underlying social ills that make people, social issues rather, that make people turn to alcohol, as well as reduce the visibility of alcohol by banning advertising. And even if the gains are marginal on the one hand, you also have the gains on the others. Why can't you do both?
I think what you're trying to do is to push us in a corner to agree that banning alcohol is a solution, which we fully disagree with. So you cannot push us into that corner. We believe that is not the solution to take the country forward. We reject that notion.
Okay, Lucky Ntimane, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Sharon Letlape, thank you so much for your time and your insights as well.